Nightmare.
Welcome to Teddy's Nightmares, where ordinary stays turn into extraordinary tales of terror. I'm your host, and tonight, I'll take you through a journey of chilling Airbnb experiences that will make you question your next vacation rental. From the eerie melodies of a Victorian home to the sinister whispers of a secluded cabin, these stories unravel the darker side of seemingly idyllic getaways. So, sit back, relax, if you dare, and let's dive into the world where the ordinary becomes the haunted. But before starting, hit the like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell. Story 1. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to the supernatural. Ghost stories and haunted houses were nothing more than entertaining lore for Halloween nights. So, when I booked an Airbnb for a weekend getaway in a quaint, historical town, the last thing on my mind was a brush with the paranormal. The Airbnb was a charming Victorian-era home nestled at the end of a cobblestone street, surrounded by similarly aged structures. Its owner, Mrs. Langley, a sweet elderly lady, greeted me upon arrival. She mentioned offhandedly that the house had been in her family for generations and was full of character. I took this as typical old house talk: creaky floors, drafty windows, the works. The first night was peaceful. I spent it reading in the cozy living room, the only sounds being the occasional car passing by and the house settling. It was on the second night that things took a strange turn. I was woken up around 2 a.m. by a sound. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct, a soft, melodic humming like that of a lullaby. It seemed to be coming from the hallway outside my bedroom. Groggy and slightly annoyed, I figured it might be Mrs. Langley. But why would she be up at this hour, humming in the dark? I got out of bed and opened the door a crack. The hallway was empty, the humming clearer now, but there was no one in sight. A chill ran down my spine, not from the cold, but from the eerie realization that the sound seemed to have no source. I stood there for a few moments, listening, before the sound faded away as subtly as it had appeared. The next morning, I mentioned it to Mrs. Langley over breakfast. She paused, her expression turning somber. "That would be my grandmother, Ada," she said softly. "She used to hum lullabies to my father when he was a child. Some say they still hear her on some nights, comforting an unseen child." She spoke so matter-of-factly, as if commenting on the weather. I spent the day exploring the town, but my thoughts kept drifting back to Ada's lullaby. That evening, I was half expecting, half dreading to hear it again. But the night passed in silence. On my last day, while packing, I found a small, old photograph tucked behind the nightstand. It was of a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile, holding a baby. On the back, in faded script, was written "Ada and Son, 1893. I left the Airbnb with the photograph still vivid in my mind, along with the haunting, yet comforting melody of Ada's lullaby. As someone who had always dismissed such tales, I was now left with an unexplainable experience that I couldn't rationalize. It was both unsettling and oddly serene, a reminder that some mysteries might just be beyond our understanding. Story 2. The city had been overwhelming me. The endless bustle, the constant clamor, and the persistent demands, they were all weighing heavily on my mental state. I was merely 32, yet I felt significantly older. Hence, I decided to seek refuge in a locale where tranquility was the predominant sound, where life's rhythm was set by the sunrise and sunset. I discovered a charming Airbnb in the rural area, a picturesque wooden cabin encircled by extensive forests away from the chaotic throngs. Honestly, it seemed like a utopia. However, unbeknownst to me, it was a horror story in disguise. Upon my arrival, the cabin was as delightful as the photos indicated: quaint, secluded, and tranquil. But as dusk approached, approached, the cabin started to unveil its hidden nature. Initially, it was minor details. The way the wooden floorboards groaned beneath my feet, even while stationary. The strange odor in the air, sweet yet with a metallic undertone. The way the wind moaned through the trees, resembling a sorrowful lament. Subsequently, I began to observe peculiarities. The mirrors in the cabin didn't mirror my image accurately. My reflection was consistently lagging, as if another entity was imitating my movements. The artworks on the walls appeared to alter when my gaze shifted, their subjects contorting into grotesque forms. As darkness enveloped, I discerned murmurs. Soft, sinister whispers seemingly emanating from the cabin walls. They spoke of grief, of loss, and of something more ominous that I was apprehensive to ponder. Then emerged the silhouette. Each night, at midnight, it manifested in the window, a shape standing in the forest, observing. It was perpetually there, motionless, merely observing. Despite the fear engulfing me, I found myself unable to depart. It was as though the cabin had captivated me with its mysterious allure. Daily, I assured myself, wow, I'm departing tomorrow, but with each new dawn, I found myself more entangled in the cabin's enigma. What was this place? What secrets did it conceal? Why wouldn't it release me? These questions obsessed me, fueling both my curiosity and dread equally. Yet I was resolute to discover the truth or be overwhelmed by it. Days morphed into weeks. I became strangely engrossed in the mesmerizing aura of the cabin. The whispers intensified, the figure in the forest appeared nearer, and the cabin's oddities grew more evident. One day, I uncovered a hidden door beneath an old rug. It led to an unexplored basement. The air was moist, permeated with the scent of ancient soil and something different. An aroma that turned my stomach. It was identical to the sweet yet metallic odor I had noticed upon my initial arrival. In the faint light, I discerned cryptic inscriptions on the stone walls. Ancient symbols, unfamiliar, crisscrossing in a dizzying pattern. The same symbols were etched into a wooden pedestal in the center, atop which rested an aged, leather-bound tome. Approaching the tome, the murmurs escalated into a thunderous echo. I now heard distinct phrases, a repetitive chant. I couldn't comprehend it, but felt an irresistible urge to open the book. With shaky hands, I opened it. The pages were discolored by time, adorned with the same symbols from the walls. But there, amidst the book, was an illustration that chilled my blood. It depicted the cabin, and by the window stood a shape, the same entity I witnessed every night. However, in the illustration, the entity wasn't outside, it was within, gazing straight at me. I recoiled in shock, dropping the book. Silence engulfed the room. I sensed a presence behind me. I was hesitant to turn, reluctant to face what I knew was there. But I needed to. I turned. I faced it, the entity. No longer a mere shadow, but a vivid, eerie specter. It resembled a manifestation of despair crafted into human form. It extended a hand towards me, simultaneously tangible and ethereal. My instincts urged me to flee, but I was immobilized by fear. The specter's touch was freezing yet searing. As it made contact, I was flooded with emotions: sorrow, rage, terror, desolation. These feelings weren't mine, they belonged to it. Suddenly, I was elsewhere. I remained in the cabin, but it was altered, vibrant, populated. I was experiencing another's perspective, sensing their emotions, living their memories. I was the specter. I witnessed the cabin's true essence, not merely a structure, but a penitentiary for those who defied nature's law. The specter, I realized, was not a phantom, but a captive, eternally confined within the cabin. The memories turned darker, replete with anguish and grief. I endured every instance of the specter's solitude, each fragment of its despair. It was unbearable. I thought I yelled, but suddenly I was back in the basement, alone. I vacated the cabin the next day. As I departed, I sensed its gaze, now altered. It wasn't threatening, but thankful. I had shared its isolation, its solitude. I had provided it something absent for ages: companionship. As I glanced back, I saw the figure in the window, observing my departure. But this time, it wasn't solitary. Beside it was another shape, a recognizable one. It was myself. I may have left the cabin, but a part of me perpetually lingered, ensnared in the haunting solitude, eternally sharing the cabin's concealed truth. I've been back in the city for weeks now. The noise, the turmoil, it's unchanged, but I'm altered. The cabin transformed me in ways I'm still deciphering. Nightly, I dream of the cabin, of the window's figure. But it's not horrifying, it's somewhat consoling. It's an odd sensation, feeling connected to something so distant, so removed from my reality. Story 3. I decided to surprise my wife with a vacation for her birthday. We're child-free, financially stable, and love exploring new places. She had just one request for the trip: a hot tub. Scouring Airbnb for a suitable place with a hot tub on short notice was a challenge. After searching through Savannah, Charleston, Myrtle Beach, and Virginia, I had an epiphany: Tennessee's Smoky Mountains, famous for their cabin rentals with hot tubs. I found a cabin with near-perfect reviews on Airbnb, booked it during a break at work, and kept it a secret from my wife until we set off on our journey. The cabin's entrance was through a beautiful, ornate gate, followed by a 2-mile driveway filled with blind curves. The moment we entered the cabin after entering the access code, we were in awe. It was stunning. As I relaxed on the couch and my wife freshened up, I noticed a note under the TV remote. Expecting it to be about the hot tub, I was startled by its content. "Welcome, guest. For a safe and enjoyable stay, please adhere to these rules. Be indoors before midnight, ensure all doors are locked, and do not engage with any outsiders, especially if approached by a hooded figure. Avoid leaving food outside. Lastly, a positive review before departure will provide the code to exit the gate." I chose not to alarm my wife, suspecting it might be a quirky joke from the housekeeping staff. Later, we enjoyed the hot tub under the stars, feeling blissfully serene. As midnight neared, I suggested we head inside to bake cookies and watch a movie. While watching the movie, a series of loud knocks interrupted us. Peering through the window, I saw a pale man in a dark robe asking for food and claiming he was hungry. A note in the freezer warned against giving him anything. I returned empty-handed, and the man left, but not before his presence caused a commotion with my wife waking up frightened. Suddenly, we heard chanting outside, and a group of figures started circling the cabin, creating an unnerving atmosphere. In a state of panic, I mistakenly fired a handgun I had brought for safety, thankfully harming no one. The next morning, we found muddy footprints all over our car. I hastily wrote a positive review to receive the exit code. So, if anyone plans a trip to the Smoky Mountains, be cautious of unexpected encounters. Story 4. Something weird is happening in my Airbnb. Part 1. I'm away for a friend's nuptials. My pal Kirk, his partner Linnea, and our buddy John all booked an Airbnb together, a quaint, isolated house in the countryside. After navigating the challenging hill, it was a refreshing change from the urban bustle. However, things soon took an odd turn. The wedding, held yesterday, was splendid. But the following day, nursing hangovers, We stayed in, especially as a storm brewed outside. Luckily, we had stocked up on drinks. With pizza ordered, our night was set. As we chatted about the wedding, Linnea, probing Kirk about marriage plans, suddenly asked, "Did anyone hear something odd last night?" I had slept soundly, undisturbed by anything. "No, what did you hear?" "Wildlife, maybe?" "I'm not sure, but it was like a humming sound." Apparently, the rest of us had missed it. Finishing our second wine bottle, Kirk suggested, "How about a game?" We recalled spotting board games in the basement earlier. The usual games were there: Monopoly, Scrabble, Yahtzee. "Found the perfect one," Linnea exclaimed, holding up a navy blue box. "Pictionary?" Kirk guessed. This game seemed popular, judging by its clean condition. We set it up, teams naturally being me and John versus Kirk and Linnea. Linnea was quick at drawing, winning the first guitar round. The game heated up by the fifth round, with playful banter flying. But then, Linnea hesitated, her gaze locked on the drawing pad. "What's up?" "Your turn," Kirk said, slightly irked. She silently showed us the pad. "Look." "So?" I said. "Others must have played before us." She pointed to a sketch, a pentagram with numbered angles. "What was the word they drew?" John asked, teasing about their anniversary. "Stop it," Linnea replied, flipping through the pad. There were more odd sketches. One detailed a goat head with symbols, another had unfamiliar images, and a page filled with foreign words in unusual ink not matching the box's pens. "Did anyone hear that?" Kirk suddenly whispered. "Hear what?" I asked. Then I heard two faint footsteps, deliberately quiet. "There's someone upstairs," Linnea whispered, panic in her voice. "Should we call the cops? Do we even have signal here?" I replied. Our phone showed no service, a common issue here. "Could be the owner's kid," John suggested. We hadn't met the owners, only texted about keys and local eateries. Them having kids seemed plausible. "Maybe?" John bravely decided to investigate. Linnea was concerned, but he reassured her with a wink. He's always been flirtatious. We followed him upstairs, cautiously. The house, a highly rated chill farmhouse getaway, seemed untouched. Suddenly, lightning flashed, and the power failed, plunging us into darkness. We used our phones for light. Maybe the circuit breakers in the garage? I guessed. "Could be," Linnea said, searching the kitchen. "There should be candles here oh my God." A sudden burst of light revealed a tall, hooded figure outside the window, staring in. "Did you see that?" Linnea's voice shook. We shone our lights outside, but the figure had vanished. I insisted we leave immediately. Kirk and Linnea agreed, but John hesitated. "Really? What about our stuff?" he added. "We're leaving it," I declared. At the door, I wondered if we had locked it. I cautiously opened the door, scanning the dark, rainy outside. We rushed to the car, fumbling to unlock it. "Quick," Linnea urged. I found the keys, but the car wouldn't start. "No more keys," I muttered. We had to go back inside. The house door was ajar. Kirk denied leaving it open. Could have been the wind. John led the way back in. "I'm not hiking down that road. I'll face whatever's out there." Inside, it was silent and dark. "Let's find that breaker," John said. He and Kirk headed to the garage, while Linnea and I kept watch. Suddenly, we noticed a car's lights approaching, then retreating. Had someone returned? Someone's here, Linnea whispered, crouching by the door. We heard footsteps on the patio. Then, a loud knock. The door opened. I reacted swiftly, tackling the intruder. Linnea, armed with a bat, was ready to strike. Stop! It's Derek! John shouted. Derek? A friend from the wedding. He explained John had invited him for a post-wedding party. Where's Kirk? Linnea asked. He went to the basement for his knife, John said. Why alone? Linnea fretted. We searched the basement, calling for Kirk, but found no one. Then, the power returned. What now? I asked, feeling my phone vibrate. Everyone checked their phones, a message from Kirk in our group chat. Stay with us, we exchanged puzzled looks. What's happening? Derek asked. I think Kirk's pranking us, John guessed, but Linnea was visibly upset. We sat in the living room, ready to gather our thoughts, unsure of our next move. Part 2. So much has unfolded. We gathered in the lounge, intermittently dozing. The rain had lessened, yet continued its steady rhythm on the roof and windows. Fortunately, electricity was still on. Derek, ever the trooper, chose to stay with us. I emailed the property's owner, though I doubted a late-night response. Past midnight, we still faced issues with making a phone call. Wait, Linnea, lounging on the sofa, suddenly sat upright. Did anyone review the reviews? She meant the Airbnb. We must have. I pondered. Had we, though? Who decided on this place? Planning our trip involved endless messages about various accommodations, flight costs, car rentals, and more. Group chats are a blessing and a curse, indispensable, yet overwhelming. But anything on in the reviews? She questioned, retrieving her phone. Let's check. I did the same, while Derek continued his deep slumber on the sofa. He must have had a drink or two before his Uber ride. Now, he'd probably regret that decision. We sifted through the reviews, encountering numerous 4s and 5s. Mostly standard compliments. Charming, scenic retreat. Felt right at home. Owners were discreet, hardly knew they were there. The property had an adjacent guest house, likely where the owners stayed when not traveling, allowing guests complete privacy, thus justifying the cost. Even the 3.5-star reviews, the closest to grievances, mentioned only minor issues like poor cell reception and a quickly depleted cold water supply, typical for a secluded, older residence. Look, Linnea interjected. Scroll down to the last review. It was a recent 5-star rating, but all it had was a smiley emoji. That's unusual, I remarked, checking the reviewer's name, Maltese. An odd name, indeed. Maltese had no profile picture. Reviewing their other feedback revealed a pattern. There were reviews in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania, someplace in Kansas, and a small town in West Virginia. This person traveled extensively. Each review, though, was the same, just a smiley emoji. Where's John? Linnea's query interrupted my thoughts. He'd gone to inspect the car when the rain had lessened. Now that she mentioned it, he had been gone too long. We should look for him. Linnea grabbed her jacket. I'll join you. We glanced at Derek, his snores now louder. Best to let him be. Outside, we approached the driveway. It was empty, save for our car with its hood open, no sign of John. Oh no! Approaching the car, it quickly became apparent the engine had been tampered with. That's why it hadn't started. Where is he? Linnea's voice trembled as she shone her flashlight around frantically. She turned to me. What now? Decision-making was never my forte. I always relied on others for plans. Whenever I suggested an outing, I'd spend half the night answering texts about details. I detested it. Leadership wasn't my thing, but now I had to step up. We re-entered the house, heading to the lounge. Stopping in our tracks, we noticed Derek was missing. As if the deja vu wasn't enough, we heard them again, footsteps from upstairs. I gestured to Linnea, who nodded. She grabbed a baseball bat, and we ascended the stairs quietly. Reaching the first bedroom, Kyle and Linnea's, the door was slightly open. I nudged it. It creaked open. Inside, nothing seemed amiss. Bags lay half unpacked, clothes scattered, Linnea's dress hanging from the closet. Linnea, attention fixed on the hallway, turned. We both heard it. Noise came from John's room. We passed family pictures on the wall, a wedding, baby portraits, a forest landscape with an odd tree. Reaching John's door, I slowly turned the knob and entered. My flashlight scanned the room, beer bottles, a suitcase, an open condom packet near the bed. Flicking the light switch, we saw an Iron Maiden poster. This was probably a kid's room. Our eyes fixed on the attic entrance's chain. I pulled it, revealing the ladder. Climbing up with Linnea's assistance, I found myself in a dusty attic filled with old boxes, an NES console, and bags likely stuffed with clothes. Then, Linnea pointed her flashlight to a drawing on the wall. It was a jigsaw puzzle piece with a weather vane on top, surrounded by the letters HALPHAS. "Oh no," she whispered. "Is that blood?" The light was too dim to confirm, but beneath the drawing lay a long, stained cloth. Lifting it, Linnea gasped, and I turned away, nauseated. The sight was horrifying. Descending, we felt lost and sick. "We must call the police," Linnea declared, attempting a Wi-Fi call. "Oh no!" I glanced at my phone. A new message from Kirk. The guest house. Looking outside, we saw it, a small house across the yard. I opened the window, considering the drop. Could we jump? Linnea's voice was tense. "Maybe," I replied, unsure. Her call ended abruptly. Did they trace it? Is someone blocking the signal? The power failed again. With flashlights in trembling hands, we prepared to leave. "Take the bat." "Let's go." Nodding, we left the room. Downstairs, I grabbed a large knife from the kitchen before stepping outside. The rain intensified. We approached the guest house. The door, unlocked, swung open. Inside, we found Kirk, bound and gagged, but alive. Freeing him, he gasped, "We need to leave." Obviously. The room's walls were covered with more drawings, illuminated by lightning. "Thank goodness you messaged," Linnea said, untying him. "Message?" He looked puzzled. Then it dawned on us, he couldn't have sent that text. Another lightning flash revealed several hooded figures outside. "Oh no! What now?" I looked at Linnea and Kirk. Linnea tightened her grip on the bat, Kirk clenched his fists, and I brandished the knife. Stepping outside, we faced the cloaked group. They advanced, carrying knives with wavy blades. Suddenly, John's voice shouted, "Fuck you." He emerged, axe in hand, attacking one of them. "Run," he yelled. But it was too late for him. A hooded figure slashed his throat. Seizing the moment, we ran. Down the hill, onto the road, we escaped, adrenaline fueling us. A 911 call finally went through. The police arrived, taking us to the station. Backups found no trace of the hooded figures or our friends. After giving statements, we learned more from Kirk. The cult members had been conducting rituals in various homes, returning occasionally to previous locations. Finally reaching the hosts, they were shocked, returning soon. Then, a text from them, a smiley emoji. I remember the attic's trash bags. Story 5. Never had I imagined that my quest for a weekend escape would turn into a surreal encounter with the unknown. The Airbnb I chose was not your typical lodging. Hidden away in a dense forest, the place was a modern glass house, starkly contrasting its wild surroundings. The host, a young man named Alex, was friendly but somewhat aloof. He quickly showed me around, emphasizing the beauty of the isolated setting, and left, mentioning something about not disturbing the natural balance. The first day was bliss. Surrounded by the dense thicket, I felt removed from the world. As night fell, the forest sound seemed amplified, creating a symphony of nature. But it was the second night when things took a bizarre turn. I woke to a strange tapping on the glass. Initially, I thought it was just an animal, but the tapping was rhythmic, almost intentional. Peering into the darkness, I saw nothing but my own reflection. However, as I turned to go back to bed, I glimpsed a shadow darting away in the corner of my eye. The next morning, I explored the perimeter, finding no footprints or any sign of an intruder. Alex dropped by to check in, and I mentioned the incident. His reaction was odd, a mix of concern and a not-so-subtle eagerness to brush it off. The forest is full of life, some seen, some unseen, he said cryptically. That evening, the tapping returned, more persistent this time. And with it came a low, guttural humming that seemed to vibrate through the glass. Fear gripped me, but curiosity propelled me to the window. What I saw was inexplicable, my reflection, but not quite. It was me, but with an ethereal quality, and behind me, in the reflection, stood a shadowy figure, featureless and still. I spun around, but there was nothing there. When I looked back at the glass, the figure was gone, and the tapping had ceased. The rest of the night was a sleepless vigil. On my final day, I confronted Alex, demanding an explanation. He hesitated, then revealed a chilling story. The glass house was built on land that was once sacred to an ancient tribe. The tribe believed in spirits that guarded the natural world, and the house, he believed, had become a focal point for these entities. I left the Airbnb with more questions than answers. The experience lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder of unseen worlds that might exist just beyond our perception. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that shadowy figure one last time. But there was only the road behind me, stretching back into the dense, whispering forest. And there you have it, dear listeners, 5 harrowing tales from the depths of Airbnb's seemingly innocuous listings. From spectral lullabies and sinister cabins to enigmatic glass houses, these stories make us wonder what truly lies behind the doors of our temporary homes away from home. But now, I turn to you. Have you ever experienced something unexplainable, something that defies logic and reason during your travels? A whisper in the night, a shadow flitting at the edge of your vision, or maybe a feeling that you are not alone? And if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to join us on future adventures. Remember, the ordinary can often lead to the extraordinary, and each story brings us closer to unraveling the enigma of the world we live in. Until next time,